The Boys season 4 finale just dropped, and I just watched it with these peepers of mine, so I'm here to vomit some thoughts on the season as a whole. Throughout the season, I've been pretty vocal that for the most part, I found it to be the weakest of the series so far. But with a series like The Boys, being the weakest in this show is like being the least strong powerlifter. Like, you're still stronger than 99% of the population. I still think The Boys is a really good show, better than a lot of shows that come out. I just, for the most part, felt this season wasn't nearly as great as the previous ones. Now, before you bare your fangs at me, let me explain. Previous seasons weren't perfect or anything, they definitely had some ups and downs, but overall I just felt like it was still stronger than the majority of this season. I think the finale of season 4 was spectacular. Like, I actually thought that was extremely hype, and it's got me fucking salivating for the final season. But I'm going to talk about that separately. I want to talk about all of the episodes leading up to it, because I really felt like most of it was like watching filler in Naruto, where it was kind of like padding until the next major arc happened. Which really isn't fair to say, because this isn't like some kind of non-canon mumbo-jumbo nonsense that doesn't tie in. It wasn't just filler, it was just in a state of perpetually building to where the finale eventually takes us. But in the process of building, it kind of lost that sense of danger. Like, there was never any moments in the series, in season 4, where any of the main cast felt like they were in a perilous situation where someone might die, or there might be like real repercussions for a decision that was made or a plan that goes wrong when shit hits the fan. Now, there's no way to really talk about this without getting into some spoilers, so fair warning, but I'm gonna do my best to avoid like big spoilers. So what I mean by this is like, Butcher is afflicted with super cancer, the dude is fading away like a fucking fart into the wind, and yet it still never felt like he was actually in danger of dying. And even when plans go so wrong, completely tits up, none of the characters were ever really in mortal danger. Like, it always fell onto someone else, like, who's the leak? And then eventually it ends with Webweaver getting fucking bisected after he comes out of his butt like 6 times in fear. Like, it just never really felt like there was any huge risk to the cast, where previous seasons doing anything directly with the Soups was life or death. Like, this is a big deal, but here it's played off almost comedically every single time, with Huey going undercover in Webweaver's garb and then getting sexually assaulted for like 10 minutes. And they play it off as a joke where he gets butt-ass naked and is forced to sit on top of a cake and kegel it in order to sexually pleasure a complete fucking freak superhero. So that's probably like the main reason I felt like this season was weaker than the previous ones, is just because it felt like it almost never really mattered if plans went according to how they were drawn up in the blueprints. You know, whether or not you followed John Madden's playbook here, it ultimately didn't matter because the main characters had plot armor for the most part. So it's not like the biggest deal in the world because it's still a good show. And they did some things that I really did like, especially with A-Train. I think A-Train had an incredible arc in this season, and I'm really excited to see what he does in the final season. Like, they had A-Train go from this almost irredeemable character from the beginning. In fact, A-Train is really kind of the character that kicks off The Boys and pretty much brings all of it to the forefront. And they take this villain and they've slowly developed him into a character that is really well fleshed out. It's a character who, for the first time in their life now, has done something that made them feel like a real hero, as opposed to just this fucking Vought mascot that they pretend is a hero, but is actually just like an awful person. Now, he's really feeling like he can do something good. And it's really cool to see that development. Like, I really think they did amazing with A-Train and his redemption arc. And they also introduced a new character that I think is really good. Sister Sage. She's the smartest person in the world, and Homelander recruits her to the Seven because he believes that she can help him accomplish all of his goals and wildest dreams. And she can. She's kind of the puppet master behind everything that happens in season 4. She puts together the plan, and even when things don't go exactly how she drew it up, ultimately, things are going exactly how she wants them to, because she is that smart, and she's able to put all of these moving pieces together and just play the game. I also really love what they did with Huey's dad. I'm going to avoid spoilers around that topic, but I absolutely thought they crushed everything about that episode. Like, it was more than just the Huey mother and father relationship dynamic and everything there, but also some of what happened there ties into just an overarching theme of it, and I thought it was just like beautifully weaved into that. I really thought they handled that super well. I thought that was fantastic. And of course, yes, Homelander is still an incredible villain, and in this season, even more so. He doesn't exert his strength as much in this season as previous ones, but that almost makes him even more intimidating because now he's trying different methods besides just brute strength to get to his goals. That's not to say that he doesn't kill people in the season, because of course he does. Homelander probably doesn't go a single day without killing somebody by accident. So there's plenty of scenes of him just murdering people, torturing people like a group of scientists. I mean, and he has some brutal slaughters, fucking ripping someone's face off and licking his own asshole with their tongue type shit, like big gruesome things. But that's not what makes him like a scary villain. It's just how great Anthony Starr's performance is, coupled with how well written Homelander is. And now he's got the smartest person in the world by his side, and it's just really interesting. Even though Homelander like snaps at one point and just goes like full fucking like Neanderthal brain, and like temper tantrum shit, seeing red, and just goes rogue, off book, no longer following the master plan that's been elaborately laid out in front of him. He's then trying to do it all himself, and that is also still really good. Homelander's just a really good villain, and he's good in this season too, of course. I could go on further for things I liked about the season, but I want to start getting into the things I didn't like that I feel makes it the weakest of the series so far. So one of the main things I didn't like about this season was what they did with Starlight. I have never liked the cliche, the trope of like super strong characters starting to lose their powers, oh no. Like I just never like when a character gets nerfed, and she's going through that here in a big way. But worse than that, they turned her into kind of this loose cannon. So like she's very aggressive and she seems very callous. So another thing I really didn't like is that it seems like the relationship between Starlight and Huey is non-existent throughout season 4. Like they probably only have like 4 or 5 scenes in total where they seem even remotely intimate, and that's in the last couple episodes mainly. But before that, they kind of just look like fucking strangers. They look really indifferent and distant between each other, so that whole relationship seems sidelined, and for some inexplicable reason, she's very unsympathetic towards Huey in even his most traumatic moments, like when he gets sexually assaulted multiple times. She actually even gets mad at him for being sexually assaulted. So this is going to be a big spoiler, fair warning. There's a shapeshifter in this season, and the shapeshifter takes the form of Starlight and imprisons the real Starlight. Huey, of course, doesn't know that, so the Annie that keeps coming home to him every night he believes is the real Annie. He'd have no reason to suspect otherwise. So, they fuck. They steam ham in the bedroom together. Even propose. They even, have a proposal moment. And when the real Starlight breaks free and, sorts all that mess out, she gets mad at Huey for having sex with the fake Starlight. He got sexually assaulted. He didn't know. He had no idea that this was a fucking stranger. That's a sexual assault, and she's getting, furious at him for it. That's baffling to me, because she's also the victim of sexual assault in the show, and yet here, she's mad at Huey for being a victim. That really just rubbed me the wrong way. Now, she doesn't stay mad about it for long. A few scenes later, she does come up to Huey and talk about it in a different way. But even still, just having that at all was just really weird for Starlight as a character. I just really didn't like what they did with Starlight for this season. But with the way the finale ends, I am very curious to see what she's like in season 5. Because the position she's in at the end of this season is totally different. Another thing that really started grinding my gears, and this one's a little more of a nitpick, but it really felt like this season, half of the characters were just perpetually sexual. Like, of course, that's nothing new to the boys. This isn't going to be like one of those moments where your eyes pop out of your skull like, sexual? In the boys? Why, I never. But even in previous seasons with like the fucking hero-gasm and everything, this one just felt like every character conversation somehow tied into cock in one way or another. Like any time the Deep or Noir was on screen, they would talk about having a boner. So like the Deep is talking Noir like, yeah, no, like murder's super cool. You get something called like a murder boner and stuff. Your penis fills with blood and it gets big. from killing people. And then he gets a murder erection later, and then Ashley's constantly stepping on scrotums, and then it has that whole Huey scene with one of the Supes who's like masturbating while telling him to sit on a cake and then getting tickled, and it's just so much. And like half of the dialogue sometimes when it feels like a character doesn't exactly know what to say, they immediately default to saying something like, time to make like my butt cheeks and fuck them, and then break. Like they break the huddle and then go do whatever they were about to do. I don't know, just like for the millionth time that they said something like that, I just got real tired of hearing it. It was so frequent. Like so much. And then another thing that I'm kind of indifferent on is Butcher. I love Butcher as a character, but in this season, I'm going to avoid some spoilers around Butcher here, but there was some things with Butcher, and of course what's happening to him, that led to him making some decisions that were really very kind of out of character. But I guess it can make sense given what he's going through right now. And overall, I still think he was good in the season. It's just there were some times where I really felt like he would do things just for the sake of like convenience to the plot. I don't know how to really talk around it without getting into the specifics, but overall I still thought Butcher was great, but with a couple of hiccups that I wasn't too big of a fan of. Some of my other complaints I think are a little too specific and spoilery, and I'm trying not to like spoil big stuff, though I guess I kind of already vaguely did with one of the things I talked about, but even still, overall, I did enjoy it. I still really like The Boys. I still think this is a good show and a good season. It's just not as strong as the previous three, in my opinion. But it's not like it's significantly worse or anything either. And I really did like the season finale a lot. This is like the first season finale where things are in a completely different spot than where they began. A lot of the other ones have kind of gone back to status quo. Not this. Not at all. So I'm very excited for the final season. Plugging season 4 of The Boys in the Moist Meter, I'd give it a very comfortable, like, 75%. So yeah, that's really about it. See ya.